In this video, I'm going to go over some of the content that you need to know if you're going to be taking, say, College Algebra this summer or maybe during the fall semester. And I can't cover everything here, so this will be just kind of the highlights of what you need to know. For sure, you need to know your operations with signed numbers, decimals, fractions, percentages. Some of the things that I touch on here might be covered in College Algebra in more depth, but this is just going to be the basics. So start off with a few equations here. Linear equations, first degree equations, and in these type you expect one answer, one solution. First degree, possible you could have a contradiction where there is no solution, but for the most part you could expect one solution. So it's like, as I go through these, you can pause the video problem by problem and work it out yourself, and then check yourself after I work it out. So the first one is just again, like I said, linear equation has only x variable on the left side. We want to isolate the variable. So we can add 8 to both sides. Adding 8 to the left side cancels the 8, the minus 8. And then adding it to the right side gives me 10 and 8 is 18. Isolate the variable. Do the opposite operation, times. So we divide by 3 here. And this cancels out. We get x equal to 6. And keep in mind, you can always check your answers on this if you have to, or if you want to, or they tell you, your teacher tells you to check. Put a 6 where the x is. 6 times 3 is 18. Minus 8 gives you 10. The next one, again, it's a linear equation. We want to isolate the term with the x. Sometimes you'll have x's on both sides, so you have to collect those together. So this one, again, I'm going to take the minus 3 over. Just changes the sign. I can add negative 3 to both sides, or I can just bring the minus 3 over and it changes the sign. So this gives me a minus 2 plus the 3. And then it leaves me with a negative 7x on the left side. And then again, knowing your sign operations here with sign numbers, negative 2 and 3 gives me a positive 1. Divide both sides to cancel the negative 7. I want to make it a 1, so I divide both sides by negative 7. This cancels out. I get x is equal to a negative 1/7. This one again is a linear equation, but it has fractions. Whether it's a linear equation or a quadratic equation, any equation with fractions, I would recommend you find the lowest common denominator. In this case, we have a 3, a 4, and a 6. So lowest common denominator is 12. All of those numbers will go into 12. 3 into 12 will divide, 4 into 12, 6 into 12. And then we just multiply everything on both sides by 12. So in the first one here, let's do it this way. 3 goes into 12 4 times, and then multiply 4 times the 3x to the minus 2. So again, 3 into 12 is 4 times the 3x minus 12. So 3 times, or 4 times 3x is 12x. And then 4 times the minus 2 is minus 8. Remember, we don't have the 3 anymore because we divided it out. And the next one we have minus x over 4. 4 into 12 goes 3. 3 into minus x is minus 3x. Then the next one, 6 into 12 goes 2. 2 into 5 is 10. So now we just simplify. Each side we have like terms, 12x minus 3x, that's a 9x. Again, we want to isolate the variable. So when you're solving these types of equations, you want the variable on one side and the non-variables or the numbers on the other side. So here we add 8 to both sides. The same thing is saying, take the minus 8 to the other side, it changes the sign. So it's 10 and 8 is 18. Now we have 9x is equal to 18. We want to make that coefficient in front of the x a 1. So we divide by 9. 18 divided by 9 is 2. The 9's cancel over here, so we get x equal to 2. Okay, those linear equations, first degree. The next one I have the equation 2 to the power of 3x. Now some of these you will cover in College Algebra. These are the very basic though, so these are things you should know. So let's see if we can figure this out just by writing the 8 as an exponential. So I know that 3 factors of 2 is 8, so I can write the 8 as 2 to the 3rd power. So now I have a base of 2 and a base of 2. Well, the only way these two can be equal is if the exponents are equal. So that means 3x will equal to 3. So 3 times 1 gives me 3, or divide both sides by 3 to get solve for x. This cancels out. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so x is equal to 1. That should be your answer. No heavy-duty steps here, just using some common sense. If I put a 1 where the x is, that gives me 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 to the third power just gives me an 8. So x equal to 1. Now the next one, you can have some formulas where they ask you to solve. So here I have a formula for the perimeter of a rectangle, and it wants me to solve for w. So that means I want to isolate the w, the term with the w. So I said, well, okay, this will be a p. Take this over to the other side. That just changes the sign. Minus, it'll be 2l equal to 2w. We want to solve for w, so we divide both sides by 2 to isolate the w. So this cancels out. So w will equal to p, representing the perimeter here, minus 2l divided by 2. Okay, the next one also involves a formula, and this is the formula for the area of a triangle, and we want to solve for b in this case. Again, it has a fraction, so let's get rid of the fraction, multiply by the only denominator we have is 2, so multiplying by 2, both sides, on the left side I get 2a, on the right side the 2 cancels here, that just gives me bh. I want to solve for b, so I divide both sides by h. Let's cancel out. So I get b is equal to 2a over h. And now it's possible that in something like this, then they say, oh, well, find the value of b. If a has a certain value and h has a certain value, then you just plug into this to find the value of b. Okay, the next one is a factoring problem. You'll be working problems that involve factoring, especially when you get to covering polynomial functions, zeros of a polynomial and so forth. This one's pretty straightforward since the coefficient of the square term is 1. We can just set the parentheses here. Always try to factor a common factor if you have it. But there's no number that divides every term here. So we just look for the factors of x squared. Are going to be x and x. And we look for factors of 24. In this case, that will give us this minus 2 here. So 6 times 4 is 24. So we want to come up with a minus 2x. So let's put a minus here and a plus here. And let's check the answer. X times x gives me x squared. That checks. 4 times negative 6, negative 24. That checks. Multiply this inner product here. And over here, this gives me 4x. And a minus 6x. Does that add to minus 2x? So those are the factors. X plus 4, x minus 6. Okay, the next one, another factoring problem. This is a binomial, 2 terms. Always look for a common factor. So I got an x cubed there and an x there. So I can take out an x. And that leaves me with, then the first term then becomes an x squared instead of x cubed. And the second term becomes just a minus 16. Always factor completely. So here we have x times x squared minus 16, but we have a difference of squares. Anytime you have a difference of squares, when you're dealing with binomials like this, one factor will be the difference of the square roots, the other factor will be the sum. So the square root of x squared is x, the square root of 16 is 4, so this becomes x minus 4, and x plus 4. So that's factoring. And this is how you use the factoring here. The next one, we want to solve this equation. This is a quadratic equation, it's degree 2. So these generally will have 2 solutions. They could be real, they could be imaginary, they could be no solution. There's no real solution. And there's several methods to solve quadratics. You cover that also in algebra. The easiest way is to factor. If one side is 0, factor the left side. And this is the one we just did earlier here. So the factors are x minus 6. So anytime you have the product equal to 0, 2 factors, then either one factor or both factors are equal to 0. So basically you solve each factor, steady factor equal to 0 and solve it. So x minus 6 can be 0 when x is equal to 6. Or x plus 4 can be 0 when x is equal to negative 4. So the 2 solutions that we get for this equation are real solutions, 6 and negative 4. Now you got to know some basic stuff with monomials, simplifying rational expressions, laws of exponents. So here we go. have a monomial here, 2x to the second, y to the third, times negative 4x, y to the fourth. But just remember that here, it's all multiplication, so multiply the numbers together. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. The x squares go together, so it's 2 factors of x, and here it doesn't have an exponent, that's a 1. 1 factor of x, so 1 and 1 is 2. Add the exponents, so this gives me x to the third. And then we have a y to the third. Get those together. 3 factors of y, 4 factors of y over here, that's all together. 7, we just add the exponents. So we get minus 8 x to the third, y to the seventh. And on this one, simplify means reduce it. So we're going to find the common factors that each of these have and divide them out. So for the first one, the numerator, rather, take out the x, always factor the numerator and factor the denominator. So this will be x, and then the other factor is x squared minus x. And this factor over here factors into x minus 3 and x plus 2. X times x is x squared, 2 times minus 3 is minus 6, and then here the inner product is minus 3x, and outer product is 2x, 2x and minus 3x is minus x. So those are your factors that we have for this one. And of course this one up here is difference of squares again, so we can go further for this one. X squared minus 4 is a difference of 2 squares, so we can have x times x minus 2 and x plus 2. Now cancel out the like factors, and the denominator we have an x plus 2, so that we divide that out. Numerator we have an x plus 2, so that leaves me then, and the denominator I'm left with x minus 3, and the numerator I'm left with x times x minus 2. This is your simplified answer for this one. Again, as I go through these, I get to another problem, you can go ahead and pause the video and try it, and then check yourself and when I work it out. Okay, basic ideas about lines. Here we're looking for a point that's on the line that has this equation. So remember, the points on the line are given by ordered pairs. So here they're telling you x is equal to 3. What's the y coordinate? So put a 3 here. This would be 2 times 3 is 6 minus 3y equal to 12. Well, you just basically now, once you make that substitution, you're just solving an equation. A linear equation is like the ones we had at the beginning of the video. So at negative 6 to both sides, I get negative 3y. This comes over, and it's a minus 6 here. And this will be then 12 minus 6 is 6. Divide through by a negative 3. This becomes a 1 over here. Divide by negative 3. Gives me a negative 2. So the ordered pair is 3 and negative 2. And all that means is that point is on the line. So if you put a 3 where the x is and a negative 2 where the y is, it should give you the number on the right side. 3 times 2 is 6. Negative 2 times a negative 3 is a positive 6. 6 and 6 is 12. It checks. And then the next one, again, still working with lines. What is the slope of a line with the equation 3x minus 7y is equal to 5? Now there's a formula for the slope of a line if you're given the points. But there's also if you have the equation, and this is a linear equation, x is degree 1, y is degree 1. If you have an equation in this form, that is, if you have it solved for y, the coefficient of the x gives you the slope. So all we have to do here is solve this for y. So take this over to the other side. Same thing as adding 7y to both sides, so we get 7y here. Take the minus 5 over, or add minus 5 to both sides, we get this. And then we divide, solve for y. We want it in this form here, slope-intercept form. So divide here by 7, divide here by 7, divide here by 7. And the coefficient of the x is 3 over 7. So the slope, use the symbol, the letter m for slope. Slope is equal to 3 over 7. Now if they ask you for the y-intercept, it's the second component, so that would be this one right here. It's a point, it would be 0 and negative 5/7. But here we wanted the slope. A vertical line passes through the point 5, negative 3. What is the equation of the line? Well, the equation of a vertical line always has the form x equals to a number. So that's your x. So the equation is x equal to 5. Now if they ask you for the equation of a horizontal line that passes through this point, the equation of a horizontal line is always y equal to a number. Since this is your y here, in that case it would be y equal to -3. But here they're asking for the equation of the vertical line to that point. Now the next one, the log of 8 to base 2. Again, you'll deal with logarithms in more depth in college algebra. Here's what you have to know. This is just the basics here in this particular video. So a logarithm is an exponent. So basically the base for this logarithm is 2. So we're asking 2 to what power gives me 8? 2 to what power gives me 8? Well, 2 to the first is 2. 2 to the second is 4. 2 to the third is 8. So this is 3. So the logarithm of 8 to base 2 is the number 3. Now sometimes you'll need a calculator to evaluate. Sometimes they come out exact. But this is, I'm just giving you the general idea here on these problems. Like I said, you might go in more depth in the course, College Algebra. Okay, the next one, 15. We're evaluating the function f of x. We want to find f of 2. All this means f of 2 is what is the value of this expression if you replace the x by 2. So I write it f of 2, where you have an x, put a 2. So I'm going to put it in parentheses just to be clear. That's the x. And then it's squared. Minus 2, have another x, put a 2. And then it's plus 7. So this is going to be 2 to the second is 4 times a minus 3 is a minus 12. Minus 2 times 2, that's minus 4, plus 7. So this gives me a minus 16 plus 7. Again, we talked about the sign numbers. So that's another thing you need. It's a must. Know how to work with sign numbers. Negative 16 plus 7, signs are different, so we subtract. Keep the sign of the larger value, in this case the 16, comes out to negative 9. Okay, number 16. If x is an even integer, express the sum of three consecutive even integers in terms of x. So x is the first one. And because it's even, consecutive even integers differ by 2. Right? You have 4, say, 6, 8, 10, 12. So if x is the first one, then 2 more than that is the next one. So just add 2 to that. Then you want 3. The third one would be 2 more than that one, so add 2 to that. That's x plus 4. Now if this had been an odd number, the same thing. Odd numbers differ by 2, consecutive odd numbers differ by 2, so you would have, say, 3, 5, 7, 9. Now if it's just consecutive integers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then this would just be, first one's x, the next one's x plus 1, the next one is 1 added to that is x plus 2, and so on. Okay, the next one. You should know, going to college algebra, a little bit of percentages. So you should know that the percent sign usually means per 100 or divide by 100. So when you change from a decimal to a percent, you're simply moving this over 2 places to the right. So this would be 2.3. See, the percent means divide by 100. So if you want a regular decimal, take out the percent and just divide that by 100. Moves your decimal over 2 places. In the same way for this one, 37% is equal to what decimal? Drop the percent because you're going to divide it. It means divide by 100. So this will be 0.37. Move the decimal over 2 places to the left. That's the same thing as dividing by 100. Now, if we have something like 75% of 40, you can think of 75% as 3 over 4. You can convert percents to fractions. So you could take a calculator and just go ahead and write 75% as 0.75 and multiply that times 40 and you get 30. So 75% of 30, or 75% of 40 is 30. Notice if I multiply 40 by the equivalent here, 75 as a fraction is 3/4. So 4 into 40 is 10. 10 times 3 is 30. Now sometimes you'll see 33 and 1/3%. That's just 1/3. So 1/3 of 90 is 30. So you should know a little bit of what a percent is, how to convert it to a decimal, how to take a decimal, convert it to a percent, and so on. Now in college algebra, you normally study systems of equations in 2 variables. This is an equation, a system of equations in x and y. You could have one in x, y, and z. and some equations, 4 equations with 4 variables, x, y, z, and some other variable w, say. And several techniques to solve them, but here's the deal for this one. We want to find x and y that will satisfy the first equation and the second. Keep in mind, this is a line. You graph that one, that's a line, that's a linear equation. Same thing here. If those two lines intersect at a point, you have one solution. If the two lines are parallel, you have no solution. If the lines coincide, you have an infinite number. Here, if we just add them, see, let's add them up. This side equals to this side, and this side equals to this side. So let's add them. X and x is 2x. Minus y and y cancels. In other words, we're trying to get the system down to one variable to make it easier to solve. So if I just add the equations, I get 2x is equal to 6. Divide both sides by 2. Here and here. 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. So I know x is equal to 3. So I'm looking for y. What is y? Well, you can go to either one of these. The first one or the second. So put a 3 where the x is, solve for y. So I put a 3 in the second one there, that's 3. Bring it over, that's 2 minus 3. Y is equal to -1. That's your solution. You can also give it as an ordered pair. Say the solution pair is 3, -1. In other words, that point 3, -1 is on both of these lines. You can see you put 3 where the x is, -1 where the y is. You get 4, 3, and -1, you get 2. So that checks. Now the next one, I'm going to go over this just for some of the mistakes that some students will make. 3 to the second power means 2 factors of 3. So that's 3 times 3, this is 9. So just be careful. If it's written this way, this 2 only applies to the 3, not the negative. So this is kind of like if we had it this way. If it doesn't have it in parentheses, it means this. So 3 squared is 9, and then you have the minus. It's to be -9. Now if it has the parentheses, then it means 2 factors of -3. So -3 times -3 is +9. So you have to be careful with those types of problems. Have a negative exponent. Just remember, if you have, say, any base to a negative n power, the same thing as 1 over a to the change the sign becomes a positive n. So you got this, put it in the denominator, but change the sign of the exponent. 5 to the -3 becomes 1 over 5 to the third. So again, then you simplify. 5 to the third means 3 factors of 5. That's 5 times 5 times 5, that's 125. We get that. Then some basic stats here. Given this set of numbers here, find the mean, median, and the mode. These are all values that are called measures of central tendency. They're type of averages. The one that you're probably familiar with is the mean. I'm going to call it x. Sometimes we call it x bar. These could be test scores, for example. So let's say these are your test scores. You want to find what is your average for the semester or whatever. You add those up, and then you divide by the total number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that comes out to 555. If you add those up, divide by 7, and the average that you have, say, would be 79. Rounded out to one place. So the mean. They usually denote the mean by x bar. Now the median is the middle value. Always make sure they're in descending powers or ascending powers. So in this case I have it in ascending powers. 50, 60, 70, 90, 90, 95, and 100. So since I have an odd number of values, I take the middle one, right there. I have 3 values above and 3 values below. You just take the middle one. So the median value, average, is 90. Now if you have an even number, let's say I had 8 values instead of 7, then you would take the middle 2 and divide by 2 to get the median. The mode is simply the most frequent value. You have 90 twice, so that's the mode. The one that's more frequent. If the frequency for all of them is just 1, then you don't have a mode. Sometimes you could have 2 modes. Let's say we had 2 95s, then we have a bimodal distribution, 90 and 95. But basic statistics you should know. If for no other reason, you can keep track of your average during the semester. Like I said, the one your teacher will usually probably use is the mean. That's when, like I said, you add them up and divide by the total number. You know, a little bit of geometry here. A right triangle. And of course you should know the terminology. Right triangle means that this angle, or this triangle, has one angle that's 90 degrees. And then the other two angles are acute. That is less than 90 degrees. So it says one acute angle measures 70 degrees. What is the measure of the third angle? Well, you should know that if you have a right triangle, that's 90 degrees there. The total number of degrees in the for the angles is 180. So anytime you have any triangle, you add all three angles together, you're going to get 180. So if this one's 90, then this one and this one have to add up to 90 because we have to have 180. 90 plus 90 will give me 180. So if they give you one to be 70 degrees, then the other angle should have a measure of 20 degrees. 22. The bid probability, if you roll a die, what is the probability that you roll a 2? Well, a die has numbers on the sides 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one of the 6 is a 2. So the probability is 1 over 6. Now, what if they asked you roll a die? What is the probability that you get an even number? So what is the probability? You roll the die once. What's the probability that you get an even? The total number of items or numbers is 6, and there's 1, 2, 3 even. So that means you have 3 chances out of 6. The probability of even then would be 1/2. Okay, the next one. What is the vertex of the parabola? Parabolas are usually graphs that go either open up like this, they open down like this. You also have the type when you have the y squared, that's the type that opens side to like this, to the right or to the left. When you have something like y equal to x squared by itself, the vertex is going to be at the origin, 0, 0. And the graph is going to go like that. If you add a number to the right of that, all it does is move it up that many units. So in this case, the vertex is going to be 0, 5. If there were 7, it would be 0, 7, and so on. The next one, I'm going to quadratic. Find the two solutions of the equation. X squared is equal to 25. This one should be pretty straightforward. What squared gives me 25? Well, 5 squared is 25, but negative 5 squared is also 25. So the two solutions are 5 and negative 5. Let's look at the next one. If you are driving at 60 miles per hour, how long would it take you to arrive at the next town that is 30 miles down the road? This is one, you could use the formula here, but it's just a common sense, just to test your common sense on this one. Driving 60 miles per hour, how long would it take you to arrive at the next town that is 30 miles down the road? Well, you're going 60 miles per hour, you know, in 1 hour, if you keep at that speed, constant speed, you gotta go 60 miles. You know, okay, about 30, well, half the time, right? So, the time, 30 minutes, or half an hour. And of course, you can test to the distance formula. We have a distance formula that's used quite a bit in algebra and even some higher level courses. Distance is equal to rate multiplied by the time. So if I want distance and I'm going 60 miles per hour, then in 1 hour, or half an hour I should say, I want half an hour, so in half an hour, hours cancel out, 60 divided by 2 gives me 30 miles, just to confirm it. Okay, for fractions, and this is a must. Know basic arithmetic for any course. We'll start off with College Algebra here. So this one, a couple of ways we could do it. We could just say, but this means 4 plus 1/2 plus 3. So I could write this as 4 plus 1/2 plus 3 plus 1/3. That's what it means here. 4.5 means 4 plus 1/2. So I could just say, well, let's set the whole numbers together. 4 and 3 is 7. And then let's set the fractions together. And common denominator here is 6. So 2 goes into 6. 3 times 1 gives me 3. 3 goes into 6. 2 times 1 will give me 2. So this is going to be 5/6. Again, different ways to do this. I could just multiply, cross multiply here. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 1 is 2. Add them up. And then multiply these out. You get 5/6. So this would give me 7 and 5/6. Now another way to do it here, I could just write this as instead of a mixed number here, rewrite it as an improper fraction. 2 times 4 is 8 and 1 is 9/2. And the same thing here, 3 times 3 is 9 and 1 is 10/3. And then I could do the same sort of thing. Either way you want to do it here. I could just say, let's put a 6 over here. That's the common denominator. 2 goes into 6. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 into 6 is 2 times 10 is 20. So we can say this is going to be 47/6. And that's really your answer there. But if you want to rewrite it as a mixed number, you can say, okay, well, let's divide 6 into 47. That'll go 7 times. With 5 left over, that'll give me 7/5/6. That's your answer. Okay, that's actually the last problem. And again, I covered just the basics of what for sure you need to know this. Know your sign numbers, know your decimals, operations with decimals, percentages. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.